Hey guys, it's Cheryl from Woodshop Diaries, and in this video, I'm going to be sharing how to build this stackable 3-tiered wooden Christmas tree. So here it is for the off season, all nested together for easy storage, and here it is all set up for Christmas displays or whatever you want to use it for. I actually built this one a couple years ago before I even started making a lot of videos. So this year I revisited the project and built a second one so that I could film the process. So in this video, you'll see me making this one, but this was actually the original that I made several years ago. I've got the printable plans linked in the video description below. So if you're ready to get building, let's go. So I built the original project, the one out of walnut. I built that 2-3 years ago. And at the time I had a 1-inch thick piece that I cut my own 1-inch square dowels from. If you're going to go to the store and buy pre-cut dowels, most likely, depending on where you live, your options are probably gonna be poplar or oak. I'm rebuilding another one, this time out of poplar. I grabbed 2 3/4-inch square dowels, 36 inches long, and 5 1-inch square dowels, 36 inches long. For the bottom of each shelf piece, it's 3/4-inch thick wood. So you can either glue up solid panels for this. You could glue up your 1x scraps and then trim them down to final size, or you can just use 3/4-inch plywood. In my original project, I glued up my panels. However, it's really cold outside right now and I don't really want to glue up anything. So I'm just going to use some scrap 3/4-inch plywood. Whether or not you want to glue up your own panels and trim them down, or just trim down some plywood scraps that you may have, it doesn't really matter. You can do either one. I think that's all the notes. Let's just dive in and get building.
To get started, I headed to the miter saw to start cutting down my pieces. This project was built in 3 separate sections, so I'm starting with the bottom first. Each section has a specific angle number to remember, and for the bottom, it's 9 degrees. So I set both the bevel and the miter angle of the saw to 9 degrees and cut 4 corner posts from the 1-inch square dowel. To cut the angles the right direction, I trimmed one end, then just slid it down and cut again. Don't turn it or flip it. The angles should be cut the same direction on both sides. The dimensions can be found in the plans linked below, but I cut 4 identical pieces for the bottom section corner posts. Then I grabbed the 3/4-inch square dowels and headed back to the miter saw. Okay, so I moved the bevel of the saw back to 0, but I left the miter at 9 degrees. And I'm gonna cut my 3/4-inch square dowel pieces with just the miter degree. Now, to clarify, mathematically, this is not correct. So if I were to put this together mathematically correct, it would stay a compound angle. It wouldn't be quite as simple as this. Mathematically, no, this is not correct. However, in this case, for such a small project, this is going to be close enough while still keeping a very simple miter degree angle. For these pieces, I adjusted the saw's bevel angle back to 0 degrees and only mitered the ends 9 degrees. These will be cut opposite each other, so you'll have to flip the piece over to cut each end so that it's not parallel. This gave me 4 1-inch square dowel corner posts and 4 3/4-inch square dowel top pieces. Before assembling, I sanded these pieces lightly. Now I put this together using wood glue and brad nails, and I made sure to pay attention to the orientation of the angles and the pieces as I assembled, and made sure to keep my fingers out of the way of the nails. I glued and nailed 2 sides together first, keeping the top dowel flush to the outside of the corner posts.
Okay, so you can see that I installed the 3/4-inch square dowel flush to the outside edge of these pieces, which means they are not flush to the inside edge and also not flush across the top.
Then I attached the other 2 top pieces between the 2 sides to make a kind of pyramid-shaped frame. And FYI, in case you're wondering why I use smaller dowels for the top frame pieces, it's because if I didn't, they would hit each other on the inside corners and they would need to be trimmed. which just complicates everything, so I made them smaller. Now the bottom section is the most challenging to put together because the pieces are longer and heavier than the next two sections, so this is the hardest part, I promise.
So I know that nailing is somewhat of a challenge on these small pieces, especially when there's weird angles and it's hard to kind of like hold the pieces. You want to keep your fingers out of the way. My advice, take it or leave it, is to make sure to apply plenty of wood glue to the joints, then shoot the nails to kind of get them in position. And then once you have all the pieces together, you can clamp tight until the glue dries. Then it should sturdy up quite a bit. And also if you wanted to shoot a couple extra nails in here as well while it's clamped tight, you can. Or if you want to be really careful, you can use some screws. They might be prone to split the wood, so be sure to pre-drill if you decide to do that.
While the glue dried on the frame, I headed to my scrap plywood pile and picked out some pieces that I could use for the bottoms. Now I needed one piece for each section plus a small piece for the very top. And again, all the dimensions for these can be found in the plans linked below. I trimmed these to size on the miter saw, then applied edge banding to cover up the plywood edges. Now of course, this is optional, and if you wanted to just glue up solid panels instead, that would work just as well. Once the glue had dried on the bottom frame, I flipped it upside down and used some wood glue and brad nails to secure at each corner. Now in the plans, I mentioned using screws for this, and you can use screws or nails. Screws will hold better, but are likely a little overkill for a small decorative project like this. I did use screws in my original version, but I used nails here. Either works fine. Once the bottom section was complete, I moved on to assembling the middle section. And this is exactly the same process as the bottom, only the measurements are slightly smaller and the angles are slightly different. I mentioned earlier that each section had a specific angle number to remember, and for the middle, it's 12 degrees. So I set the miter and bevel angles to 12 degrees and cut my 1-inch dowel corner pieces. Just a tip here, these pieces should be cut to about 13 inches long, and at this point you should have 3 full-length 1-inch square dowels left. Now in order to get everything for this middle and the top section cut from what's left, you'll need to cut 2 of these 13-inch pieces from one dowel, then cut 1 from each of the other 2. This should leave you with enough to cut the 2 corner posts for the top section later. Then I set the bevel back to 0 and cut 4 3/4-inch square dowel top pieces with 12-degree mitered ends. I assembled the top pieces between the corner posts just like the bottom section using wood glue and brad nails. I clamped it tight, and once it was dry, I installed a 3/4-inch plywood bottom with wood glue and nails at each corner. Now for the top section, it's a little different. The top section is held together by 2 solid panels instead of 4 frame pieces. The key angle for this section is 15 degrees, so I set the miter and the bevel to 15 degrees and cut my 4 1-inch square dowel corner posts. But I didn't cut any 3/4-inch square dowels for this. Instead, I assembled these corners to the bottom panel using wood glue and nails, or again, you could use screws instead if you prefer. Then I tied the tops together on another solid piece using wood glue and nails, and again, all the dimensions for these panels can be found in the plans linked below. For some optional added detail, I used what was left of my 3/4-inch square dowel and cut 3/4-inch cubes to add some feet to each section. I clamped a scrap board to the miter saw to make cutting these tiny pieces a little safer. Cutting small pieces on a miter saw is always a little nerve-wracking. I made a mark on the board so that I didn't have to measure all of these pieces. A stop block would also work as well, but I was afraid that it would bind and cause the little pieces to go flying. I just glued and nailed these pieces onto the bottom corners of each section. Now at this point, it's technically complete, but for another little extra detail, I added a star to go on top. I just rough sketched a cartoony looking star on a scrap block, but if you wanted something different or something more perfect, feel free to use a stencil or freehand something better. I cut this star out with my jigsaw and sanded it well. Then I used a small drill bit to drill a hole in the bottom of the star about an inch deep or so. I used a 3/8 inch drill bit to drill this hole out a little larger and then cut a small piece of 3/8 inch dowel to glue inside. I measured the center of the top panel of the top section and drilled out a 3/8 inch hole, not all the way through, but about halfway through. To make this a little easier to get the dowel in and out, I wiggled the drill bit around in the hole a little to widen it until the star went in easily but was still a pretty snug fit. And at this point, it's ready for paint or stain and to be put on display. I hope you guys enjoyed this project and this video, and if you want to keep up with all of the latest projects and plans, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching, friends, and until next time, happy building!